Sarah from Contemporary Education, here today to talk about how we can develop students' agencies in schools, thinking specifically about the organization of space. So this is part of a larger video series that includes reflecting upon how we can better develop students' agencies in schools related to 4 organizational factors: space, time, resources, and relationships. So I have discussed what I mean when I'm speaking about agency in a previous video, but just to recap very briefly, agency can mean something from just having the opportunity to make a choice rather than having decisions made for you or being coerced into certain decisions. But I use agency in an even deeper and perhaps broader way, thinking about not only the opportunity to make a choice, but also the quality of that decision making. How students are reasoning and deliberating over decisions, using knowledge as a tool for decision making so that they can make more informed, intentional, and meaningful decisions. So it's a more amplified view of agency. In order for us to reflect upon how we can design space in schools to better develop students' agency, let's think about what we typically can see when we walk into a school nowadays. Usually there are uniform spaces throughout the school. So there are many classrooms, all basically designed in the same way. So they're the same size, the same layout. Oftentimes that layout, when you walk in, there are individual desks for each student laid out in rows facing the board and also the teacher's desk. So this kind of spatial organization can work well if there is a lecture style kind of teaching and learning that is happening in the classroom. So students face the teacher, they can all hear the teacher writes information on the board, the students then write that information in their notebooks. They're more the passive consumers of knowledge, and the teacher is the transmitter of the knowledge deemed to be appropriate for that subject matter. But it puts the students, as I said, in a more passive position. So they're not given opportunities for making many choices or exercising their agency. They're told what they're going to do in the order that they're going to do it, an exact way that they need to do it. So everything is pretty much dictated to them. So I think we can think about design of space on a few levels. One is the classroom level. So thinking about how we can have flexible spatial design so that there can be moments that are individual, that are in pairs, trios, groups of 4, or larger groups, that we can have moments where you're working in groups, other moments that it's a whole class dialogue, other moments that there's a presentation format from a group of students to other students, and it could be many other possibilities, including moments of being, working on your own, organizing on your own, or one-on-one with the teacher to have advising. So these demand many different possibilities of how space is organized. Thinking about the uniformity of classrooms throughout the school, I also think it warrants questioning, why do we need this uniformity? Why do we even need to organize students in specific classrooms where they would either stay throughout the day in their cohorts, or that they would stay for a specific subject, outside of the idea that there might be single use spaces that serve specific subjects better than maybe others, such as a science laboratory for doing science experiments, but that we can think about this balance between single-use spaces such as a science lab or a maker space, or the library, which actually could be multi-use within it, but it has some specific functions, an art room or an atelier, a recording studio, or a theater space, a gym. These can all also have multiple uses within them, but the space already delimits certain possibilities and affords some others. But then the rest of the school could be various multi-use spaces with different types of furniture, different types of layout, and also trying to bring some kind of balance between both indoor and outdoor spaces, more private, like individual use spaces, and more public spaces. Also smaller, cozier spaces and larger spaces, so that students can think together with their teachers, and their teachers as advisors and mentors, giving them orientation and helping them to reflect on the use of space. What space best affords certain possibilities versus others? And if we think about how that connects to the content that they're learning, it's also something that can make it more meaningful to work in certain spaces than others. So helping students to think about how they use space and reflect on their use of space in relation to also how they can best make connections between content and the real life situations and problems that they face. It's very important that they have this aspect of thinking about the meaningfulness and the intention behind their choices of space. So again, thinking about agency not only in terms of presenting an opportunity to make a choice, but the quality of the choice, the deliberation that goes into the choice, the reasoning that is involved in making a choice. Beyond the classroom and beyond, I already talked about the possibility of multi-use and single-use spaces, but having a diversity of space possibilities throughout the school that can be shared and used in different ways. There's also using the community as an educational space. So how students can also go beyond the walls of the school in doing service projects, entrepreneurial projects, community volunteering, internships, and also canvassing, questioning, doing surveys, interviews with people in the community, observational reports, field work and field studies. All of these elements going beyond the walls of the school and into the community as other spaces that can serve the educational and pedagogical objectives of school. Then going beyond that, beyond the community, and I think also that community, we can think about the people in the community, both within the school community, like families within the school community and other members of staff that aren't necessarily pedagogic faculty, and beyond into the community, like small business owners and neighbors and people who have many different jobs in the community, how they can be resources for the teaching and learning process, and not only the teachers and the teaching faculty. So another layer to think about then, going from the classroom to the whole school to the community beyond the walls of the school, are the global possibilities. So we have the local possibilities, but we also have the global possibilities that now more than ever, we are more interconnected and can reach out and reach beyond using a myriad of different tools in order to connect with people across the globe in many, many different places, in order to also have them serve reciprocally back and forth as resources for one another, again, towards pedagogic and educational needs, so that this space is not limited to the space that I have right in front of me, but can be far beyond into many different spaces and many different realities, and thinking about how, again, that opens up possibilities for making choices and making informed, intentional, and meaningful choices about how we use space to develop students' agency at schools. Again, the teacher always has the role of this mentor, advisor, guide, to give orientation and to present possibilities for reflection upon choices individually and collectively, and that this is something that can help students in their lives beyond school when they graduate, and thinking about how they organize the space around them, to take co-responsibility for the spaces that they inhabit and they co-create, and give them this opportunity at school to not only enter a space that has been completely predetermined in its use and they are just inserted within it and told how to use it, but for them to be able to constitute these spaces, create these spaces, and learn how space is part of a fundamental organizational element in our lives as human beings. So that's my take on it. I invite you to enter into this dialogue about developing students' agency in schools, thinking about specifically space, but also time, resources, and relationships at contemporaryeducation.com. Thanks.